Hi and welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. It's Lois here, and today I'm going to be demonstrating this line and wash painting of coastguard cottages on a cliff. It's a scene from Cookmere Haven, and I'll be painting it as a line and wash using waterproof fine liners, sketching the scene out first in pencil and then going over the sketch with black watercolour fine liners. And the aim of today's demo is to show you how to paint the light. And how to paint the light is quite simple really. You don't paint it. What you paint is the dark around the light. So I'm starting off with a time-lapse version of my line work, where I gradually build up the outline of the scene over my pencil sketch. And once I've got the outline in, I can use a thicker nibbed pen and fill in the darker shadows and really go heavy on the tones. This is my style. This is the way that I enjoy doing this. You don't have to put as many darks in with the ink if you don't like that. If you want a lighter touch, you can use the paint to put your darks in. In today's demo, I'll be showing you my colour mixing as well. There's room on my board for that, as today's painting is in portrait orientation, so I can have my palette next to it. And I'm going to be using a limited palette, as I usually do. Today's limited palette will be Prussian blue, light red and burnt umber. And as you saw at the beginning, the painting is quite monochrome. There are various subtle hues within the colour, sort of greenish, bluish grey that I'm using, because really what I'm trying to do is focus on the light and not the colour. So here's the finished line work. You can pause it here if you want to take a closer look at my shading style. Here's my setup then for painting. My board's at an angle of about 20 degrees, so gravity will help me paint. I'm using Saunders Waterford cold press watercolour paper, which is taped to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape, and I used Faber-Castell Pitt pens for the line work. I'm going to squeeze out the paint onto my palette. First of all, that's light red or Venetian red. Secondly, Prussian blue. And my third colour for my limited palette is burnt umber. I'm going to be painting wet in wet, so I'll be wetting the sky all over, but not wetting the cottages, and just wetting parts of the cliffs and beach, because the idea is to paint the sky and some of the background, but leaving quite a lot of it unpainted, or just using dry brush strokes, so that I can then keep the light by painting the dark. Once the first layers are on and once it's dry, I can come back and paint in even darker darks to make my light stand out even more. So that's just about it for the first washes. You can see how I have cut around or painted around the cottages, and already they're standing out really nicely. And just leaving some of the cliffs and the beach unpainted or with dry brush stroke, which creates some sparkle where the brush hits and misses the texture of the paper. We've started to really get a feeling of light and dark, simply by painting around the areas that we want to keep light. You could of course use masking fluid to protect the white of the paper for the cottages, but this way I think the cottages are large enough for us to cut around them as we paint. I now need to leave it to dry completely and then come back and begin to build up the darks a little bit more using the same limited colour palette. So here it is, it's dry. It looks a bit duller here. It's still got that a bit of a sort of greenish, bluish tinge to it. But the light in my studio is typically wintry, not particularly good. So I'll try and get a better photograph of it at the end with that sort of colour coming through, a little bit less dull grey. So mixing up exactly the same colours, but this time with a slightly darker value. So I'll be testing out the colours on this little sheet here just to make sure they're okay. And using a small flat brush, I'm just going to be working on building up the darks a little bit more in my painting and sort of some darker mid-tones. So in order to make the light on the wall of the cottage that's facing into the sunlight, I can darken up the other side wall, the one that I shaded with a bit of line work hatching, just with this darker value of paint. And straight away, the darker the paint, the more the lighter areas stand out. So I'll continue to work across the painting, building up the darks in the sort of the tangle of garden and cliff top shrubbery, and across the cliffs and the beach, but still leaving unpainted paper for areas that I want to remain light. So I'm just about happy with that. I think what I need to do is have a look at it. I might want to add a little bit of darker tone with some dry brush on the cliff and maybe some on the beach. But I want to remove the tape so I can see it almost with fresh eyes. As soon as I see it with a fresh, clean white border, it gives me the chance to see whether the painting looks balanced or not. But by removing the tape, again, it almost looks like it's framed or matted or mounted. And yeah, I'm going to mix up a slightly darker value, maybe a slightly bluer tone, and begin to layer up here and there. I'm going to put a little bit of darker value over the railings on top of that cliff, and just in a couple of other areas. So again, building up layers like this, each time with transparent watercolour that you put a layer of paint over another, you build up the tone slightly, and you can keep doing this, and the transparent layers below will show, but the depth will build up. So I'm quite pleased with this. I think it's almost okay. Again, another few little finishing touches here and there. But I'm hoping that generally you can see how the principle here of painting light is to sort of paint around it with lovely, deep, rich, dark values. And that's what makes the light really shine out and really kind of focus in. It's like we are really seeing the sun shining on the whitewashed walls of the Coast Guard cottages and the gleams of light on the cliffs and the beach. And then looking at it again, I think I can still build up that dark even more here and there. So again, using the same mix, and let's remind ourselves of our colours. That's light red, Prussian blue and burnt umber. I can just continue to maybe knock those railings back a little bit more. I'd rather go in with a lighter value to start with and then have to go in again than make it sort of too dark and have to dab things off. Yes, those last bits of shadow there really made the white pop out even more. That's the right value there that I've got. It's funny, Prussian blue and light red can dry back much lighter, so you do have to keep an eye on it. If it dries back lighter, then just go in a little bit darker. Well, I hope that was helpful. I hope that's shown you a general principle that you can apply across all watercolour paintings, and all paintings in any media really, is to really bring out the light and show it off by painting with darks around it. And it's that contrast of light and dark that really makes a painting like this very effective. Well, I hope that was helpful. Please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And thank you so much to everyone that supports us on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. And if you want to support the channel, then please follow the links below. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.